Situated in the jungles of Southeast Sri Lanka, the Kurumigala Monastery is an ancient Buddhist hermitage dating back to the Anuradhapura period. The monastery, nestled amid a jungle teeming with wildlife, was once said to be abandoned and rediscovered by a lay devotee in 1942. Later, he invited a very special monk to this remote, merciless location. In 1954, Venerable Thambugala Anandasiritero came to Kurumigala. He took measures to clean the place, including its ancient caves, and made it habitable for meditating monks. The Mahasudarshana Lena used to be the adobe of Anandasiritero. For nearly 3 decades, the monk inhabited this monastery, which was surrounded by dense forest. Back then, the jungles weren't very populated, hence encounters with wild animals were common. Here, Anandasiritero first saw the legendary leopards of Lenama. One night, he encountered a large leopard outside his cave. The monk later claimed that he had never seen such a large leopard. More interestingly, he saw stripes on either side of the neck. The leopard stared at him for a while, then wandered away into the night. Other monks who saw the leopard too were convinced it was no ordinary leopard. One visiting monk claimed, "That is a tiger and very dangerous," and quickly left the monastery. What Anandasiritero saw at Kurumigala is still a mystery. However, his unique description of a leopard with stripes that haunted the environs of this monastery gripped public perception. This article, originally published in the Varana magazine in 1977, reiterates Anandasiritero's description of the Lenama leopards. Additionally, it says that the Lenama leopards are a local legend, but Anandasiritero had seen these leopards near Kurumigala. According to legend, a savage tribe of half-human beasts called Nittaewo once lived at Lenama in Southeast Sri Lanka. The Nittaewo were always in conflict with the Veddas, who also inhabited the area. One day, the Veddas drove the Nittaewo into a cave and set fire outside, suffocating them to death. Thereafter, the Veddas took control of the Lenama region. But their reign was short-lived. After witnessing the Kathargama festival, several Veddas attempted to reenact the ceremony at Lenama to their families. In order to light the altar lamps to the gods, the Veddas used pig fat, which was considered a sacrilege. Hence, the gods unleashed the fearful Lenama leopards, which destroyed the whole village. After Anandasiritero saw the strange leopard at Kurumigala, he inquired about it from one Yahapathami, an old man of Vedda descent who had ample knowledge about the region. He immediately claimed that it was a Lenama leopard and that it does not run away as soon as he sees a man. Yahapathami also claimed that the Lenama leopard was fully fleshed and had a longer tail. However, he did not mention any markings or stripes on the neck.
Lenama කොටියා කියන්නේ ගොඩක් අනිත් දිව්‍යයන්ට වඩා විශාල බෙල්ල යටින් වෛරන් දෙකක් තිබිච්ච කොව් පොටවල් පිට පෙරලිච්ච අනිත් කොටින්ට වඩා බොහොම ගෝසාකාරී ශබ්දයක් තිබිච්ච මහා භයංකාර ව්‍යාග්‍ර වර්ගයක් කියලා තමයි සඳහන් කරන්නේ. මොකද ඒවකට කුඩුම්බිගල සේනාසනයේ ආශ්‍රිතවත් මේ ලේනම කොටි ඉඳලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට හේතු සාධක තියෙනවා. මොකද තාඹුගල සන්නාන්සේ වැඩ සිටිය කාලේ බණ භාවනා කරන්න බොහොම කරදර බාධා වෙලා තියෙනවා සන්ධ්‍යා භාගේ මේ කොටි කෑ ගහනකොට. එක් අවස්ථාවකදී ওই කාරණය කැපකරුවෙක් වශයෙන් කටයුතු කරපු ඒ යාපත්හාමි මුත්තට කියපු වෙලාවේදී ඒ යාපත්හාමි මුත්තා කියලා තියෙනවා ඕක එච්චර ලොකු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි ස්වාමීනි මම එකයි ලෝලා දාන්නම් කියලා මොනවා හරි මන්ත්‍ර ගුරුකම් පැත්තෙන් එයා ඒ සතා ඒ පැත්තට නොයන විදියට කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා.
Nonetheless, Yapathami claimed that after the Lenama leopards attacked the village, 2 survivors took refuge atop a rock. The numerous caves and rocky outcrops at Bambaragasthalava, which is located close to Lenama, may have been the site of this event. However, a leopard managed to climb atop the rock. It killed one Vedda, but the other one escaped to Helava, situated near the Kurumigala Monastery. According to Yapathami's story, this last Vedda of Lenama was found dead in a cave by villagers at Helava, thereby ending the lineage of the Lenama Veddas. Gunathilaka Jayawardena, a resident at Panama village, is the grandson of Yapathami. He claims his grandfather's village was once situated near the Helava lagoon. The village is long gone and its inhabitants later moved to Panama.
ඔය ලේනම කොටස කුඩුම්බිගලත් ඉඳලා තියෙනවා. ධම්ම ආනන්දසිරි ආමඳුරෝ ඉන්න වෙලාවේ කුඩුම්බිගලත් ගැවසිලා තියෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ අපේ සීයා මොකද කරන්නේ ආරස්සාවට ඒ කාලේ ආරස්සාවට කුඩුම්බිගල භූමිය ඔක්කොම ආරස්සා කරලා දීලා තියෙනවා ආනන්දසිරි ආමඳුරන්ට. මතුරුලා ගල් එහෙම දාලා ඊට පස්සේ ඒ කොටි වර්ගයස දැකලා නැහැ.
However, no mention is made by Yapathami that the Veddas who were killed by the Lenama leopards had earlier killed the Nittaewo. That connection was made by Anandasiri Thero in his book, 25 Years of Life in the Jungle. In it, he says that the Veddas then lived in Lenama, having exterminated the Nittaewo. The leopards of Lenama then destroyed these Veddas. In 1885, British civil servant Hugh Neville first documented the Nittaewo based on a Batticaloa informant's account. He travelled to Panama and Kumana, questioning villagers and Veddas alike. But when Neville described the Nittaewo to the Veddas, they were amused at the physical description. The Veddas described the Nittaewo simply as a savage, cruel race living in small communities at Lenama. Apart from being rather dark, no other fantastical features were mentioned. They also claimed that the Nittaewo were exterminated by the Lenama Veddas, trapped in a cave for 3 days.
නිට්ටාව ඉඳලා තියෙන නිසා ලේනම කොටින්ට කලින් ලේනම කොටින්ට කලින් තමයි ඉඳලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ මේගොල්ලෝ ඔය ගල් ගුහාවල ඉන්න වෙලාවෙදි තමයි සර් ඔය ඇවිල්ලා නිට්ටාව කියන සත්ත්ව වර්ගය මිනිස්සු නිදාගෙන ඉන්නකොට දවසට එක බැගින් අරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා. ගියාගේ පස්සේ මේගොල්ලෝ දවසක් රෑ මුර කරගෙන ඉඳලා තියෙනවා. අයි මිනිස්සු අඩු වෙන්න කියන හේතුව බලන්න. ඒ බලපුවාම තමයි සර් දැනගෙන තියෙන්නේ මේ මිනිස්සු මේ සත්ත්ව වර්ගය ඇවිල්ලා මේගොල්ලෝ මිනිස්සු අරගෙන යන්නේ බව. ඊට පස්සේ මේගොල්ලෝ දවසක් මේගොල්ලෝ ඒ සත්තු ගෙනියන පාරේ රැට ඒ සත්තුත් එක්ක ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ගියාගෙන් පස්සේ තමයි සර් මේගොල්ලෝ සත්ත්ව වර්ගයත් ගල් ගුහාවකට ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. ගල් ගුහාවට ගිහලා තමයි අර මිනිස්සුන්ව මරලා තියෙන්නේ. එතනදී මේගොල්ලෝ එකතු වෙලා දර ඇදලා දාලා එතන අර ගල්ලේනේ කටට දර ඇදලා දාලා ගින්දර දාලා නිට්ටාව වර්ගය නැති කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
Again, it is said that one of these caves at Bambaragasthalava may be where the Nittaewo were suffocated to death by the Lenama Veddas. In fact, Hugh Neville's investigation of the Nittaewo legend led him here too. In his notes he mentions finding a cave at Bambaragala, which is no doubt a reference to Bambaragasthalava. But which cave could it be? Some say that this cave, known as the Ahaslena, was once where the Nittaewo was suffocated to death by the Veddas. From within, the cave provides a panoramic view of the jungle below. Today, the cave is occupied by a monk. Yet in an article published in the Journal of the Royal Asiatic Society in 1963, Sam Kadirgama states that while the villagers at Panama may have heard about the Nittaewo, the villagers at Kumana had no idea who or what they were. This is confusing because the Kumana village was situated close to Lenama, which was the legendary home of the Nittaewo. Kadirgama claims that even the older, experienced jungle folk like Garuwa or Vastua who lived at Kumana never heard of the Nittaewo. At the time, Garuwa was in his 50s or 60s And Vastuva was even older. If the Nittaewo ever existed, they would have surely known. Even Manika, who was the best tracker at Kumana according to Kadirgama, did not know about the Nittaewo, but was well aware of the Lenama leopards legend. Hence, Kadirgama assumed that Hugh Neville never managed to corroborate the Nittaewo legend from the Kumana villagers, because they simply never knew about it. But the Kumana villagers had their own version of the Lenama leopards legend, one that included more details about the survivors. The legend, as told by the Kumana villagers, begins the same way.
Lenama කොටියා තියෙන සර් අර ගමේ මිනිස්සු මේ කතරගම කියලා පෙරහැර බලාගෙන ඇවිල්ලා ඒ සිද්ධිය ගමේ මිනිස්සුන්ට පෙන්වන්න ඕන නිසා ඌරු මරලා ඌරු තෙල් වලින් පන්දම් අරගෙන අර ගිනි දෝල කරකවන විදිහට කරකවලා තිනවා. ඒ සෙල්ලම පෙන්නලා තිනවා සර් ගමේ මිනිස්සුන්ට ඒ කාලේ හිටපු ඒගොල්ලෝ ඥාති සහෝදරුන්ට. ඒ පෙන්නපු වෙලාවෙදී තමයි සර් ඔය ලේනම කොටි මිනිස්සු ටික නැති කරන්න පටන් ගන්න තියෙනවා. කියන්නේ මරන්න. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි සර් ඔක්කොම ටික මරුණාන් පස්සේ අයියා මල්ලි දෙන්නෙක් ඉතුරුලා තියෙනවා සර්. ඊට පස්සේ දෙන්න ඔය බමරගත්තනාවේ පණික් කෙහෙලට ගිහිල්ලා කලවැල් වලින් තමයි සර් වැලක් ඉනිමගක් හදාගෙන ඒකේ ආධාරයෙන් තමයි සර් ගල උඩට නැගලා තින්නේ. ගල උඩ නැගලා උදේ රෑ හවසට ගල උඩ නගිනවා. අරගෙන ඉනිමග ගල උඩෙන් උඩහට ගන්නවා. උදේට ඊට පස්සේ පල්ලෙහාට දාලා දෙන්නත් එක බහැලා. දෙක දවසක් අමතක වෙලා තිනවා ඉනිමග උඩහට ගන්න. එතනදී තර කොටියා ඒ කොටියා ඉනිමග දිගේ උඩට නැගලා තිනවා. නැගපුවාන් පස්සේ තමයි සර් ඊට පස්සේ අයියා ඔය අරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා. අයියා අරගෙන ගියාගෙන් පස්සේ සර් මල්ලි විතරයි ඉතුරුලා තියෙන්නේ. උදේ බලපුවාම අයියා නා ගලෙන් බහැලා ඔළුව හැරිච්ච යතේ ගිහිල්ලා. ගියාම සර් කොටියා ගලගම කියන ගම්මානයේ තමයි සර් මෙයා ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. එහෙදි සර් මෙයා ආවාහයක් කරගෙන විවාහයක් කරගෙන නැවත එහෙම පවුල් ප්‍රමාණයක් ඒ කියන්නේ පවුල් 7-8ක් වගේ අරගෙන ඇවිල්ලා තමයි සර් හැලව ගම්මානේ නතරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි සර් යහපත් ආ මුත්තා සීයාගේ පරම්පරාව හැලවෙදී පිදිලා තියෙන්නේ.
In Yahapathami's version of the legend, the survivor was a male Vedda who died alone in a cave, thereby ending the lineage. But did descendants of the Lenama Veddas survive in Helava? If so, why was this detail omitted in Yahapathami's story? According to Sam Kadirgama, it was well known in Panama and Kumana that Yahapathami was a nephew of one Hittihami, a descendant of the Veddas. Interestingly, Hittihami originated from Helava, and it is said that Hittihami's mother was the sole survivor from Lenama. Supposedly, after the leopard attack, Hittihami's mother came to Helava and thereafter married Hittihami's father. Gunathilaka Jayawardhana, the grandson of Yahapathami, provides a slightly different version of the lineage. According to him, his grandfather Yahapathami died in 1973. Yahapathami's father was Thisanhami, and Thisanhami's father was Hittihami. Supposedly, these people descend from the survivors of the Lenama Veddas, who were attacked by the Lenama leopards.
සීයලාගේ සීයලා. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි සර් ඒ සීයාගෙන් පස්සේ ඔය තිසංහාමිය ඇවිල්ලා තින්නේ. ඒ තිසංහාමියගෙන් පස්සේ තමයි සර් යහපත්හාමිය ඇවිල්ලා තින්නේ මේ පරම්පරාව. ඒ පරම්පරාව වෙලා තමයි සර් සම්බන්ධ වෙලා තින්නේ මේ අපේ දැනට ඉන්න පරම්පරාවට. ඔය හිටියාමිගේ කාලේ තිසංහාමියේ කාලේ තමයි සර් ලේනම කොටි ඉඳලා තින්නේ. ඒ අපේ යහපත්හාමි සීයත් දැකලා තියෙනවා සර් ලේනම කොටි වර්ගය. දැකලා තමයි ආරක්ෂා කරලා ආමුදුරන් ඉන්න බැරි තත්ත්වයක් තිබිලා කුඩුම්බිගල ආරක්ෂා කරලා දුන්නා පස්සේ දැකලා නැහැ.
In 1963, Captain A.T. Rambukwella launched an expedition to Lenama in search of evidence for the Nittaewo. Interestingly, Rambukwella's guide was none other than Yahapathami. Rambukwella, who provided a detailed map of his expedition, first camped at Mahalenama. Here, he discovered two fascinating locations. The first was this tree. Rambukwella's guide, Yahapathami, claimed this was the exact location where the Lenama Veddas reenacted the rituals of the Katharagama festival. Supposedly, this was the same tree which the Veddas danced around. Thereafter, they were attacked by the Lenama leopards. The second location included this strange vertical stone slab. Rambukvella surmised that it was part of a sacrificial altar or a graveyard. In the 1880s, Hugh Neville also found this rock. He too claimed that it was an altar used to sacrifice animals. Most likely, this rock is hidden in the jungle today. Rambukvella's search led him to Bambaragasthalava too. This ancient site, dating back to the 9th century, was a former monastery complex. It includes many caves, one of which houses this reclining statue of the Lord Buddha. Over 20 feet in length, this statue has now been restored. Back in the 1960s, when Rambukvella conducted his expedition, it was heavily damaged by treasure hunters. This rocky outcrop, situated close to Bambaragasthalava and Lenama, may have been the place where the battle between the Nittaewo and the Lenama Vedas reached its gruesome climax. In fact, according to local law, this rock, known as the Vedda rock or Panikkahela, was where the remaining Vedas of Lenama took refuge from the marauding leopards. Interestingly, Vedda rock and Ahaslena, where the Nittaewo was suffocated to death by the Lenama Vedas, are both based in the same location. This lends further credibility to the legends. In a twisted act of fate, the Lenama Vedas who exterminated the Nittaewo at Ahaslena were themselves exterminated at the nearby Vedda rock by the Lenama leopards. But the mystery or unraveling of both the Nittaewo and Lenama leopards' legends may be intertwined with this abandoned village at Kumana National Park. Since the 1990s, this village has been abandoned, but the placement of this village, which is situated close to Lenama, is important. So if the Nittaewo or Lenama leopards ever existed, the villagers were surely aware of it. When planter Frederick Lewis visited the region in 1914, he claimed that only 36 people lived in this village. This photo, taken by Lewis, may be the only photograph that provides an early glimpse of its people. Sam Kadirgama, who was well acquainted with the village, claimed that the people of Kumana are quite different in appearance, stature and bearing from those in Panama. So were these villagers aware of the savage Nittaewo and man-eating leopards? According to Neville, one villager at Kumana, known as Indra Mulakarya, told him that his family left Uva during the troubles of the 18th century. Thereafter, they settled at Kumana. This is similar to the route taken by the Sinhalese people who came up to the coast after the Great Rebellion in 1818. Indra's people, known as the Devoured, attempted to monopolize the region and killed a priest from Katharagama. Thereafter, the leopards developed a taste for human flesh and killed off all the Dadavedas. Luckily, Indra and a few others managed to escape. This story aligns with the traditional legend of the Lenama leopards, albeit more grounded in reality. Neville mentions that the Dadaveddo may have hunted so many animals that the natural prey of leopards might have depleted. Hence, the leopards started attacking the Dadavedas. Interestingly, the timeline of these events related to the destruction of the Nittaewo seemed to match up too. When Frederick Lewis travelled to Kumana in 1914, he was told by his guide, Disanhami, that his grandfather, who was a Vedda, formed part of the mob that killed the Nittaewo at Lenama 150 years ago. Since Lewis met him in 1914, the extermination of the Nittaewo must have taken place in 1764 in the 18th century. According to Neville, Indra came to Kumana in the 18th century. Hence, the subsequent destruction of Indra's people by the Lenama leopards could have taken place in the late 18th or early 19th century. Even though Lewis's informant Disanhami knew about the Nittaewo, neither Indra or the Kumana villagers acknowledged the existence of the Nittaewo. However, according to Kadirgama, Yahapathami knew about the Nittaewo legend, but his version of the Lenama leopards legend omitted certain details, which included the part of the survivors. Nonetheless, Yahapathami's grandson Gunatilaka Jayawardhana claims that his family descends from the survivor of the Lenama Veddas. C.E. Norris visited Kumana in the 1950s, heard of a villager's ghost haunting the village after a leopard attack. Thereafter, its people relocated, much like Lenama's Vedda village, after the predator struck. It's unclear as to when this event took place, but there are similarities with the legend of the Lenama leopards. If we strip away the supernatural elements, one can say that the Kumana village was relocated after a leopard attack. Similarly, the Vedda village at Lenama was abandoned after the Lenama leopards attacked its villagers. Since the timeline of events are unclear, there's a possibility that the present location of the Kumana village was an offshoot of the Lenama Vedda village, established after the attack of the Lenama leopards. Coming back to Frederick Lewis's old photo of the Kumana villagers, which he titled as the people of Kumanai, there are similarities with the Veddas. The attire and shaggy appearance of some of the young boys evoke Aboriginal aspects. Kadirgama mentions in his article that there's physical evidence that the village has moved from earlier sites at least twice before. He also states that while the Kumana villagers knew about the Lenama leopards legend, it had no relevance to the Nittaewo legend. Even when Kadirgama inquired specifically about the Nittaewo legend, they had no idea about it. But if we were to assume that the Kumana village was an offshoot of the Lenama Vedda village, could the omission of the Nittaewo legend reflect deliberate concealment of ancestral atrocities? Could it be why Nittaewos were not part of the Lenama leopards legend at Kumana? Any inquiries about these legends would be impossible today, since this village was abandoned over 30 years ago due to terrorist threats. However, Kadirgama states that the Nittaewo legend prevailed at Panama. When Frederick Lewis visited the region in 1914, his guide Disanhami, who provided information about the Nittaewo, lived in Panama too. However, he claimed that his grandparents belonged to the Lenama Veddas. Later, they mingled with neighboring villages and abandoned their forest life, ultimately settling in Halava. Although no mention is made about the Lenama leopards, Disanhami's family history follows the same route taken by the lone survivor, man or woman, after the Lenama leopards attacked the Veddas. As mentioned earlier, Yahapathami's ancestral village was in Halava too. Hence, it makes sense as to why his ancestors were linked to the survivors of the Lenama leopard attack. But what happened to the Lenama leopards?
ව්‍යාග්‍රයෝ කොටස කොටි වර්ගය ඊට පසුව ටික ටික විනාශයට පත් වෙලා කියලා තමයි කියන්නේ. ඒ පිළිබඳව නමුත් වර්තමානයේ යම් අවස්ථාවන් වලදී මිනිස්සුયો බිලිවෙච්ච අවස්ථා බොහෝ කියවෙනවා. මේ මෑත භාගයේ පානම්පත්තුවේ කීප දිනක් කොටි කාලා විනාශ වුණා. සමහර වෙලාවට ඒ පිළිබඳ ලොකු විධිමත් ගවේෂණයක් කළොත් යාල වන උද්‍යානය තුල ඒ ලේනම කොටි නැහැ කියන විදියකුත් නෑ අපිට හිතන්න බෑ. ඉතින් එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා. මොකද උන් කාලයක් 1960 ගණන් වාගේ කාලවලත් ඒ වෙනකොට ලේනම කොටි ඉඳලා තියෙනවා කුඩුම්බිගල අඩවිය බඹරගත්තලා අඩවිය ආශ්‍රිතව.
Interestingly, in 2020 and 2021, there was a series of leopard attacks in the Kurumigala area. Several farmers were attacked by a leopard while they were working in the paddy fields.
ඊට පස්සේ දැන් ඔය මිනිහෙක් ආපු ඔය කොටියත් සර් ඒ මම ඇහැට දැක්කේ නෑ සර් පින්තූරය විතරක් දැක්කා. ඔය ඒ කොටියත් සර් ලේනම ජාන වලට සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච කොටිය කියලා මට තේරුණා. මේක අර ඉලක්කයක්ම හඹාගෙන ආවනේ මේ මිනිස්සු කණ්ඩ මොනි කියන එක. ඒකදී තමයි ඒ ජාන සම්බන්ධ මොකක් කරේ ඇති කියන එක තේරුනේ. තවත් ඉන්න පුළුවන් කියලා හිතෙනවා සර් මට නෑ කුඩුම්බි ඔය කැලෑ ඇතුලේ ඔය වගේ කොටි වර්ග.
Even in the past, there are records of leopards at Kumana attacking humans. Some of them are said to be fearless and bold, like the legendary Lenama leopards. But why are the leopard attacks common here than anywhere else? According to DJ Hennessy, during the annual Pada Yatra, pilgrims that travel from the north to the Katharagama shrine down south sometimes get tired or sick during the journey. After being left by the wayside, their bodies appear to have been devoured by leopards. Pilgrims travelling to Katharagama have to pass through the jungles of Kumana, often visiting Kuda Kabalitta along the way. This is another notable shrine located at Kumana near the Kubukkang River. In the past, pilgrims would travel through the Kumana village too. With humans passing through Kumana on foot, it's believed that some leopards acquired a taste for human flesh. Hence, the Kumana villagers reportedly lived in fear of man-eating leopards. Could it be that in this remote jungle, there's a unique leopard species on the verge of extinction? Otherwise, the Lenama leopard may have survived till the 1970s and probably vanished without a trace. Maybe if one were to literally dig deep at the locations mentioned in the legend, evidence of such a creature may resurface. If not, what Thambugala Anandasiri Thero saw in the jungles of Kudumbigala will remain a mystery forever.